You're welcome back. It's still the run-up on Plus TV Africa, and our next guest is a young, beautiful, or at least she looks young. I don't know if she's that old, but she looks young. Her name is Tolani Thomas-Allinson. She's an award-winning entrepreneur, business development consultant, speaker, and business coach. And what I like about her is that she's committed to the growth of small businesses and startups in Africa. She has built her career working with private and non-profit, local and international organizations. But I'm interested in the fact that Tolani holds a master's degree in international business and management from the University of Bradford, UK, and a bachelor's degree in chemistry from the University of Lagos, Nigeria. The true Niger babe, I must say. Business on the one hand, chemistry on the other. Welcome, Tolani.
Thank you, Yamgu. Thank you for having me.
Let's begin with business and chemistry. Tell us what informed your choices in the academics.
So initially I wanted to be a medical doctor. So I went to University of Lagos to attempt to study medicine, but I didn't get in. So I got chemistry, but at the end of my degree, I realized that I had a passion for business because when I was in school, I was always involved in one business or the other. So I found myself like realizing that, okay, I am made to be a business owner and not a chemist. So.
Oh, okay. So that one is just bottom box, as we say.
Yes, that's by the
And you're now a full-fledged business person.
Yes, I am.
Okay, you founded Halisi Consults, a business consulting company that provides fundraising, business planning, growth, marketing, and consulting services to small businesses and startups in sub-Saharan Africa. And you co-founded Sanitary Aid Initiative, a non-profit tackling period poverty in 17 Nigerian states. You are the fundraising director there. We like it when we hear fundraising, but how do you do this? What's your target?
So fundraising is very diverse in the sense that for startups, fundraising is different from the way it works for small business and the way it works for non-profits. So I've sort of built my career around being able to advise on the different types of fundraising for each type of organization, shall I say.
Okay.
Yes.
So they just come to you for advice and then you tell them how to raise funds?
Okay, for Sanitary Aid, I actually lead the fundraising team. So we develop strategy on how to raise funds for the NGO because it's a non-profit organization. So it's a bit harder for non-profits to raise money, especially when it's for a good cause like the one that we do. So we work on tackling period poverty all over Nigeria. So there are a lot of girls in public schools, in IDP camps that don't have access to sanitary pads. And our work is to get donations from people and use it to buy pads for these girls so that they can, have some dignity and have healthier means of managing their periods. Okay,
but we're interested in the startups,
Yes.
because businesses in Nigeria struggle for a very long time before they stand on their feet. And sometimes after the passing of the person who set it up, it falls. And even when the person is still there, there's so many challenges. So in the field, what would you say to the people who are trying to start up, especially how they can key into the funds that they need to start it?
Yes, so there are several ways of raising funds for small businesses and startups. For startups, they're usually looking for equity financing, meaning that they're looking for financing that is based on them giving out a part of their company, like a percentage of their company, to the investors, with the hopes that in the next 3 to 5 years, they'll be able to make times 20 times or so of the investment.
Yeah, hold.
No worries.
Just hold that thought. When you call company in Nigeria, we feel it's a big thing. But when you say startups, we feel also that includes people that don't necessarily have to be employers of labor and all that. So what do you mean when you say company?
Okay, so
who is involved? Who can benefit? Who are you talking to now?
Yes, I see what you mean. So there are different types of companies. There's one-man business, sole entrepreneurship. There's startup. And there's small businesses, medium-sized enterprises, and large corporations, multinationals. That's the level how it goes. So there's a lot of misconceptions with startups and small businesses. Every small business owner assumes that they're a startup. But that's not the case. Because startups are usually technology-led companies where they have a business model that allows them to sell to a large number of people, a very simple service that can be replicated so many times that they are, positioned to make astronomical amounts of money. So that's why you hear things like, oh, this startup raised $2 million. Because that startup was able to convince investors that with the business model that I have and the technology that we own, we can take your $2 million and convert it to $20 million and convert it to $200 million. So that's when you hear a startup was sold for $200 million. That makes all the investors happy, because the investors that invested in that particular startup only invested $10 million. So imagine investing $10 million into a tech startup and making $200 million in 5 years. That's astronomical. So that's for startups. For small businesses, those are the businesses you see around you. That, you know, someone is in real estate, someone is manufacturing, someone is, you know, buying and selling their retailers. Those are the small businesses that we see every day. And those are the businesses that find it hardest to raise money because of the nature of the Nigerian economy, number one. The interest rates are not favorable at all to those kind of businesses. So you see those kind of businesses, when they approach investors, they hear that, oh, the investor wants to take as high as 30% interest rate on a loan that is probably as little as 5 million naira. And that stifles their growth. That makes it, you know, difficult for them to grow. You know, the economic factors are already holding them back. It's hard to sell. It's hard to, you know, export. There's so many, you know, factors that are holding them back. So for small businesses, it's a lot more difficult. For, you know, tech startups, it's pretty much, you know, straightforward. So far your business is working, you are going to find investors. So far you're doing the job, you're doing your way, you're going to find investors. But for small businesses, they have to go to, you know, microfinance banks, or if they're maybe medium-sized enterprises, they have to look to organizations like Bank of Industry and so on and so forth. But the interest rates they're not favorable, to be honest.
Well, for any economy to grow, we hear or we know that small businesses contribute a lot to the growth of any economy, not necessarily the big Dangotes and the big names like that. But in Nigeria, these small businesses are struggling, so it is affecting our economy as well. What is either the government or the people who are involved in it doing wrongly that they should change?
Okay. I completely agree with you. Small businesses are the drivers of any emerging economy. Because, you know, people look at companies and they think of the multinationals, the Dangotes, like you mentioned. But small businesses are the largest employer of labor in Nigeria. And this is a fact that you can check at, you know, Smedan and, you know, verify for yourself. Small businesses are the largest employers of labor. So small businesses are positioned to help the economy grow in a way that even large enterprises might not be able to do. So what I think what the Nigerian government can do to help small businesses is this. They can help them get financing that is a single-digit interest rate. Because right now what we have is that, you know, with the CBN policies, the private financial institutions, you're getting loans or credit facilities that are double digits. It's like 15% to 30% interest rates. When what small businesses need is interest rates that are, you know, 10% and below for them to be able to grow. Because for any business, you need credit to grow. Do you understand what I'm saying? So for a small business to really grow and maximize their potential, they need to, first of all, probably if they're buying and selling, they need to get financing that will help them buy inventory, keep in their warehouse, and be able to sell, you know, month on month, and then maybe repay the loan back, you know, based on their monthly income. That would be more sensible for them. That would be beneficial to them. But what we're seeing is that, you know, it feels like the Nigerian government doesn't really cater to these small businesses because they are more focused on the, you know, larger guys that bring in more revenue, pay more taxes, and so on and so forth. So I believe that if the Nigerian government can come to the table and sit down and actually ask these small business owners what they want from the government, what the government can do for them to make, you know, the economy more favorable for them to do business and all, I think that it will be beneficial to all the parties involved. And I think, you know, if small businesses have access to good credit facilities, it will really spur the growth of the economy. Yeah,
but the only entity that can give these credit facilities shouldn't be the government alone. So how can they tap into the private sector to make sure that they get this kind of facility?
Okay, these facilities are available in the private sector. I'll be honest with you. Small business owners can tap into financing in the private sector from different private financial institutions that provide this.
Why are they not able to do that right now?
The interest rates. So because it's
even
a
the private sector
thing.
is as bad as the government.
They're not as bad as the government. They're out to make money at the end of the day. So it's not favorable for all parties. It doesn't favor the government. It doesn't favor the small business owners. It doesn't favor the private financial institutions. Because what happens at the end of the day is that you have to find a business whose whose model can absorb that capital and be able to pay back that interest rate, that high interest rate. So it comes down to, does your business model warrant this sum of loan you're about to receive, and can your business model work for you to be able to pay back, at the comfort of your, processes, and not hinder the growth of the business at the same time. Do you understand what I'm saying? So you have to look at it from the perspective of these private financial institutions. They want to give out this money, but there are laws and there are policies that, keep hiking up the interest rates from the Central Bank of Nigeria. And in fact, recently, I think a couple of months ago, there's some financial institutions that I speak with, and they said they have to increase interest rates. It came from CBN. It's not your fault. So it's the nature of business.
Okay, let's come back to what the economy is right now. Well, the economists will say it's in shambles. It's terrible. But let's see how, maybe they've not been looking at it. Let's see how it is impacting on the small businesses, and what should the takeout be from this, so that anyone who is supposed to advise the person who is responsible for any policy should know that if I didn't know before now, X, Y, Z, if it continues, will impact this much on small businesses, which also will impact on the general economy. So what are these things? How is the present economy impacting on small businesses?
First of all, the dollar rate. I'll tell you that for a fact. The fluctuation in dollar rates, because it causes hiccups, would I say, for small business owners. And this is because small business owners, most of them are buying and selling. So they are buying products from other producing countries and reselling to the Nigerian market. So they are buying those products at a certain dollar rate. And at the end of the day, it comes down to the fact that this dollar rate keeps fluctuating back and forth. So it's difficult for them to make, profit back, to be able to keep the business going. And you keep seeing a lot of trends of businesses shutting down because of this. Also, I believe that the Nigerian business environment is not very favorable. The number of people that have disposable income for these companies or these businesses to benefit from is dwindling. Our disposable income is falling, especially the fact that the middle class, which is what most businesses are selling to. So a lot of businesses are selling to middle class people that can afford the products and services and so on and so forth. So a lot of these middle class people are leaving the country. So what is happening is that the number of customers that are even available for you to sell to is reducing. So what are you going to do in that situation? It all comes down to what the government can do to help, to create policies that are actually favorable.
Syndrome.
The Jackpot syndrome is affecting everybody, honestly.
Okay. If you were to advise the government now, finally, before my colleague also is standing by, maybe he will have a comment or he will have a question. But let me just ask you, if you were to advise the government to take urgent steps, what are the first 3 steps they need to take? Because if the small businesses impact so much on the economy, that's the lifeline. If it dies, the economy dies. So what are the first steps to take to make sure this is corrected?
The first steps to take is, first of all, to make foreign exchange available to small business owners at a reasonable rate, number one. So if small business owners can access foreign exchange that they're using to buy goods from abroad to sell within the economy, it creates, that ecosystem of buying and selling, and there will be cash flow in the system. So I think if we can get USD or GBP or yen, whichever one, at favorable rates to small business owners that are trying to buy and sell legitimately at a good rate, I think it would really help with the way business is done for small business owners in Nigeria. Also, the credit facilities, I keep hinging on this because everywhere you go in the world, small businesses need credit to be able to grow. So it's going to be very hard for a business to scale or increase operations or even pay their staff if they don't have access to credit for things like their operations, their inventory, and so on. I think the third thing is to put measures in place that can keep people not keep people in the country, but to make the economy more favorable for people, so that there's no this brain drain, and we can find a way to reduce this brain drain.
Okay.
Yes.
I hope you have your PVC.
I have my PVC,
you
of
have
course.
PVC, and you have a mental picture of who the next president should be, because of the kind of business you would want to flourish in Nigeria, right? So. We're just glad that you have that. Bayo, do you have a question or a very brief comment before we let Tolani leave?
Thank you very much for for the perspectives you shared. I have a couple of comments, but I'm going to be very brief. One, when we talk of government, who exactly are we talking about? Because we have three levels of government. We have the federal government, as you know, we have the state governments, we have the local governments. And if we keep thinking everything has to be done by the federal government, I think that we might actually not be helping our case, so to speak. So, from your experience, which level of government should actually be helping the small business owner? I ask this because I've had people complain about multiple taxation. You have small businesses where people put a small signpost to advertise their business, and the local government is coming, harassing them to pay so much money. They buy a car for marketing, they put their logo on the car, they're expected to pay so much money. So there are so many things in my view, but how do you react to that? What should be done to actually, aside from funding, there are so many other things. From your experience, what should be done to also help the small business?
Very briefly now, because our time is actually...
Not a problem. So I completely agree with you, Mr. Bayo. Thank you for that. So I feel like the Nigerian government, generally all arms, all level, practices a lot of rent seeking from business owners, and it doesn't make it a favorable business environment. So when you say what precise level, it's a bit difficult to answer because, like you rightly mentioned, local government is looking for, rent from or taxes from small business owners. You have the parastatals, you have the state government, and you have the federal government that you're paying taxes to as well. So I think the government, the different levels of governments need to come together and sit together to condense these expenses and make it less on the business owner, because these businesses are essentially helping the economy grow, are keeping people employed. They are paying these taxes as well. So if they can marry all the levels of this government and reduce the amount of taxations on the small business owners, I think that it would really, really help in their growth as well. So instead of rent seeking from different points, different angles, you have, legal license, you have advertising, taxes, and so on and so forth. And then the actual income tax that you're paying, the value added tax as well, and even the state tax is too much on business owners. I think if we can marry the cost and look for a way to make it convenient for the business owners and bring down these expenses, I think it would do a lot of good.
Okay, we'll have to let Tolani go, because if we keep talking about this, it gets more and more interesting. We've been talking with Tolani Thomas-Allinson. Her credentials are too long. Let me not start mentioning everything about her. But she is young and enterprising, and it gladdens us all the time when we see people like this making an impact in the society, in our economy, in our lives, and everywhere. And most interestingly, mentoring others, which I hope is part of what you do, working with women and the rest of that. We are so glad that you were able to make part of our show today. Thank you so much for coming. We'll take a short break for the news and return later with the young journalist. Stay with us.